Uh-oh. The beginning of the end. Uh-oh. This is a good little intro. I like it. Oh no. The cinematics were pretty cool. I like the Ashara cinematic. Oh boy, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, cinematics are amazing. Yeah, I like the cinematics. Sylvanas is a bit much. I think everybody pretty much agrees on that. BFA had a lot of cool areas. Yeah, BFA has a lot of cool areas. Okay. Alright. How about that? Decent enough. Battle for Azeroth. Let's see what his opinion is on it. Almost nostalgic. Imagine getting nostalgia over BFA.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, WillE here. Well then, here we are, the current expansion. It's been quite a journey in review so far. We've seen the good,
like that.
The bad, and the downright ugly. Battle for Azeroth is WoW's 7th expansion and promised so much in the way of new content and new places to explore. But was everything so good once you really started to dig in? I think for this episode, I'll try and make an effort to go over the main points that deserve merit or criticism for the expansion, instead of going into full detail on every single little thing that may have made the other videos a bit too long previously.
Okay.
There is plenty of content out there for BFA at the moment on the internet, and well, not a lot of it is going to be looked very favourably upon, let's just put it that way. But we need to start from the start here, as is tradition. Legion had treated us pretty well, I would say. A nice rebound expansion after Warlords of Draenor, and the send-off Legion gave us with the cinematic waiting at the end of Antorus the Burning Throne.
I hated this cinematic. I was so upset about it. I was so mad we didn't even get to talk to Sargeras. I mean, like, he was just sitting around, man. Yeah, he's just sitting around. Like, I don't know what to say.
They hyped up that hype to levels we hadn't seen for a new expansion in many a year. Not only this, but it held the promise of an expansion location that had been speculated as a thing ever since as far back as vanilla. That being the faraway lands of Kul Tiras and a troll empire in its full glory, Zandalar. Even the box art for the game was a clear throwback to Warcraft orcs and humans. On top of this, it looked to be a promise to bring us back to the good old-fashioned faction war that World of Warcraft started with.
See, that's what I was hoping it was going to do. I thought it was going to be like Cataclysm, but actually good. And like we'd have like different world PvP objectives, we'd have war mode, there was like all this other cool stuff. Like that's what I was really hoping for the whole time, man.
It wasn't just going to be another us versus the next big bad guy expansion, right? Yeah. It was going to be truly themed to have some conflict, which may have concerned some PvE players at heart, since it feels like, despite the game lore-wise being based around these conflicts, in practice these days people want to, for the most part, collect different coloured horses, play transmog, and do just PvE stuff. But we can talk about how all this played out soon enough.
Well, that's the end game, though. Like that is the true end game. I don't know what he's talking about, right? But like that is the end game. That's what people want to do in the game. Like that is the meta. And like, what do you do besides that? Like, what do you want to do? Like, oh, well, we did a mythic plus 24, so now we're going to go over to a 25. Like, oh, who cares? Like, I don't understand how anybody could get excited about that shit at all. At all.
The hype, though, certainly played up to expectations, though, with Battle for Azeroth achieving a new day one record number of sales for the World of Warcraft franchise, with 3.4 million units sold worldwide. Players are set off into the story of BFA with high hopes, and I have to say the leveling journey from 110 to 20 was a good one, especially that first time through the new zones. BFA did try something new in this regard, in that each faction had 3 main questing zones to go through on their way to the new level cap. There was also the war campaign thrown in there too, where you would travel over to the opposite faction zones and get a little bit of an introduction to how things looked over there.
See, I thought that was going to be
Alliance,
way cooler.
We had Tirigard Sound, Drusvar and Stormsong Valley, Horde, Zuldazar, Vol'dun and Nazmir. And just as certain teams at Blizzard have been doing so for years and years, and I bet you knew I was going to be saying this, how could you say otherwise? Wow, Kultiris and Zandalar look and sound amazing. This is
I disagree whenever you talk about Zandalar. I think Zandalar is stupid. Nazmir is a waste of space. Not Nazmir. Vol'dun's a waste of space. Nazmir is just... It's as appealing as a swamp could ever be, which is not appealing. I don't like the zones a whole lot. I think that I like Drusvar, I like Stormsong Valley, I feel like Zuldazar is okay, and I don't even like Tirigard Sound. I feel like all the areas I just didn't really like a whole lot. Am I weird for that? Maybe I am. But like, you compare that to like High Mountain? Like, High Mountain was better than any of the zones in what do you call it? In BFA, like by a mile. And I think Stormheim aesthetically was better than all of them too. Like, High Mountain and Stormheim were way fucking better than anything that we got in BFA. And it looks like, I mean, to be fair, like in Shadowlands, like, I like Bastion. I think Bastion looks really cool. Rivendreth is fucking incredible. Like, some of the Shadowlands expansions were pretty good, or areas are pretty good. Nazmir is better than Stormsong Valley. Well, that would be true if you were counting wrong opinions as right opinions. But we're not doing that, so it's actually just a wrong opinion. Sorry.
Some of the best work from the art and music teams yet. I remember that first time I was leveling on a midnight or so release, if I recall correctly, just stopping and staring over Tirigard Sound, the music, the snow falling, looking over Borealis in the distance. You could really feel how sort of cool and fresh it would have felt to be there. And that feeling was very much reciprocated in other zones as well. Drusvar being ominous and spooky, Vol'dun arid and desolate, Nazmir swampy and sort of humid feeling. There wasn't all that many zones though, especially when they were faction locked. That certainly could have been a complaint, which I understand.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But for what they offered, I have to say that I liked it. There were also so many good ways to level in this expansion.
I like this area.
XP was just thrown at you after a while with heirlooms, war mode, XP potions, time walking, incursions, and so on. You could get to level cap in a day with a bit of grinding, even as a returning
this wasn't really that hard.
The theme of the zone-wide story was there too, which I enjoyed seeing fully through, at least the first time. Bonus objectives were now a mainstay of the game too, which
I thought that the war campaign was terrible. I did, and here's why. It's because it was too easy. Like, it took no effort at all to complete. All you had to do was just follow the objectives that they told you to go to on the map. You killed this mob that presented no challenge whatsoever. And then you just had to go through a cutscene that explained something that you probably skipped through in the first place. It was just terrible. Like, it's a quest though? Well, the problem is, like, the quest is, they're too easy. Like, I would have enjoyed the war campaign more if they made it substantially harder. And on top of that, they gave it good rewards. The issue is that, like, Blizzard is afraid to challenge players, and because they're afraid to challenge players, then they just add in this milquetoast content that nobody gets excited about. That's what I think keeps happening. Like, it's just, they add, like, this boring ass shit into the game that, like, literally just people autopilot through and they don't even pay attention to. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Literally autopilot, Azeroth autopilot.
Yeah, like, I remember I was doing the one where, like, Bane was, like, underground or something, and I was just watching a video on the other screen. Like, I only looked over. Like, I was originally interrupting the spells, and then I realized they weren't doing any damage, and so I'm like, fuck this. Like, I'm not even going to interrupt the spells. Like, I'm just going to sit there and take all the damage and say fuck it. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is it's a big issue, man. Does you have the entirety of retail aside from Mythic? Yeah, it's like difficulty and challenge is optional. Like, it's just straight up fucking optional. Like, that's one thing I really hope they don't do in Shadowlands. Like, take these fucking Covenant campaigns and then make them beefy as fuck, man. Make it to where you have like 10-man raid bosses out in the world. Make it to where you have to get 5-man groups together to kill different parts of the different quest. And like, you can't just click on the green button, so you have to make the group yourself. Like, and then you know what? After you kill that 5-man boss, give them a fucking epic. Give them an epic goddamn weapon. Give them a new transmog cloak. Give them something that's badass. Like right now, we don't get fuck for this. Oh wow, champion, you defeated N'Zoth and saved Azeroth. Ho ho ho. Well, here's 3,000 Azerite power. That's what they do. Oh, sorry, 23 gold now. Yeah, it's gonna be 23 gold. I'm so annoyed. I really am. I'm so absolutely annoyed.
Very much welcomed, as well as flying being locked behind the Pathfinder achievement, which I'm okay with personally. I know some people really hate this. I guess it depends. Some of the zones in the game did feel like they were in part designed with flying in mind, which made them a bit annoying to traverse, but
definitely was.
At least we got over that eventually. You know what else I liked? Well, in theory anyway, War Mode. What this did is replace PvP servers as a new toggle on or off opt-in system for PvP.
I'm a big fan of War Mode.
You could only toggle it in capitals, and it would give you bonus XP, reputation, and let you use your PvP talents out in the world. If I can tell you one thing from playing PvP servers nowadays in Classic, is that people constantly bang on about when not on a PvP server there's no risk in the open world. There's also no reward either. Well, PvP has already beaten itself to non-existence in Classic. PvP in of itself isn't an adequate reward.
No, it's not, because people don't play games like they did 10 years ago. The reason why PvP and World PvP isn't a good reward is because it's not a good intrinsic reward, is because it's bad. Like, it's just bad. Like, whenever you go up against a Death Knight tank and you're a rogue, and you get him to 90% health and you're dead, and then he just does one death strike on a deer next to you, and then he heals up to full again, you don't necessarily feel like you're having a good time. Maybe don't fight the DK. Maybe don't engineer situations in the game that create a massive gulf in player power. Like, that's not the player's fault. Should people just have to like go around and like, oh, well, I can't fight against this class, I can't fight against that class, there's like no chance? That was such dog shit in Classic. Like in Wrath and Cataclysm, this never fucking happened. Wrath and Cataclysm had so much better balance than this. Don't ever tell me that it's impossible to make this happen. Wrath and Cata did such a better job. Like, it is completely possible because Blizzard has done it before. I don't want to hear any of that bullshit. Rogue 4.3, yeah, there were some outliers, but I think overall they did pretty fucking well, much better than they did now. That's why nobody wants to do War Mode or PvP in the world. It's because it's not fair. It's the same reason in Classic. Like, if you had like Wrath of the Lich King style like world PvP, I think a lot more people would enjoy it.
Especially when it's so imbalanced on the majority of servers numbers wise. I mean, when was the last time you saw somebody with rank 14 gear in a battleground? It just doesn't happen. A lot of people do it for the rewards. Actually having something in the way of a little bonus is a great way to incentivize
people are much more goal oriented now,
even if they aren't too invested in the PvP side of things. Unfortunately though, in practice it didn't really work out because nobody on the Alliance wanted to PvP, even with the incentives. So Blizzard set their rewards to an enormously high level, and suddenly there became far more Alliance than Horde. So what did Blizzard do to fix the problem? They just gave the Horde those bonuses instead, and surprisingly, it went back and forth of this sort of imbalance for quite a long time. Also, some of the raids had quite memorable moments too. Uldir was the first.
I think War Mode overall was a success, but Blizzard is too afraid to really make it as good as it could be. So, for example, if Blizzard added more, like, imagine if you would have, like, an outdoor version of the Warfront that happened, like, every 3 days in Arathi Highlands that people could fly into and they could actually participate in real time, that was open world and had both of the different castles fighting each other. Like Wintergrass, basically. It would be a lag fest, right? But, like, that's not my fault that it's happened. That's the game that sucks, right? I mean, I feel like the only way you can not have a lag fest is like doing 1v1 arena. Like, there have been times where I've had a fight against one other player and it's been laggy because somebody else was attempting a world boss in the same zone as me, and all of the world boss combat was lagging out my PvP. Like, it's just, it's so... I just, private servers lagged less? Yeah, you're right, they did. It's insane, man. Like, I don't know, just remove garbage war mode. I think war mode is great. I just think they didn't incentivize it enough. Like, the only thing they did with war mode is they added, after post-release, the only thing they added with war mode is Battle for Nazjatar. That's it. They didn't do anything else with war mode. I guess, oh, maybe the servant of N'Zoth. Maybe that. But that's pretty much all I can think of.
Of BFA, which the Horde had a massive build-up through a whole zone-wide story explaining the history of the place, the importance and why we have to deal with it, and the Alliance literally would not have known it existed in terms of lore. Really, it's never brought up at all. What was perhaps the most memorable was the fact that Uldir was the first raid where the top guilds in the world shed their secrecy and put the whole thing on the screen in the Race to World First streams, and it was a huge spectacle to behold. Actually seeing what goes on behind the scenes for the top guilds in the world in order to push those top level boss kills. You got to see the preparation, the changing team comps, the strats. It was seriously cool to follow along, and I always look forward to this kind of event each tier now. Uldir had some pretty interesting fights too. Mother with the barriers that you had to go through in a staggered fashion.
I thought Uldir was alright.
Mythic, which was really the first wall of the raid, which was kind of overtuned to say the least, as well as the RNG spawns it had, which sometimes just force you to wipe. Wasn't the biggest fan of that fight. Zul was definitely the most interesting boss in the instance by a long way too. It had these ads that could only die if they had a certain debuff on them, and what players would do is keep the ads alive and stack as many sub-rogues as they could to blast damage into the boss, and skip certain phases throughout the fight where very dangerous mechanics could stack up.
They just basically outplayed the fight by bringing in other classes. Yeah, I don't know. And Sub-Rogue got nerfed. Yeah, and then they nerfed Sub-Rogue for the entirety of the expansion, and it was worthless for the entire rest of it. And one fight, and they nerfed the fuck out of a spec. Well, of course, obviously, I mean, Blizzard could never have, they could never allow one non-end boss fight of a raid to die more easily with certain classes. I mean, this is not, they can't just let that happen. And so they had to do the right thing and make the right decision. I think that the raids overall in BFA have been okay. Battle of Dazar lore, I personally did not like it, but I didn't raid Mythic at all for this entire expansion, besides like a few bosses in Eternal Palace. So I don't really have like an informed opinion about Mythic outside of like the first half of Uldir before I quit raiding. So it's hard for me really to say. But I do think that doing like streaming the Mythic First World First race, that is really cool, and I'm glad that they did that because it gives the different raiders like an opportunity to like make money and really get some recognition for like what they've done. Because before that, I mean, like literally nobody cared. It's so bad. And Mythic was honestly awesome this expansion. You don't have an informed opinion on anything except for collecting mounts. Well, I think that I know a lot more about the game than people give me credit for, but I do think that raiding is not one of those things that I know a lot about. Like, I don't really understand raiding at all because I don't raid. I haven't raided in, like, years. So I try not to really make a lot of comments about that, but it does seem like raiding and the people that do raiding are enjoying it.
One of the most widespread ways players had found to cheese a boss fight in a long time. Some rogues had an ability called Shuriken Combo, when where Fan Knives hits a bunch of targets, their next Eviscerate does bonus damage, and they could get combo points so fast you were near spamming Eviscerate. I played a rather undergeared rogue ult for this fight, and the single target damage was higher than I was doing on my main in the next tier of raiding. Of course, it got nerfed after a while, but we can talk about that later. Gahoon was the first raid tier to be extended for a world first kill, I believe, taking Method 285 pulls to down. Battle for Dazara lore followed with an innovative new format for raids in a more faction-specific driven story, where you would change faction for certain bosses, such as being Alliance for King Rastakhan or Horde against High Tinker Mekatork. Mekatork, so that was a fight, a very unique fight with one of the biggest personal responsibility checks.
Too bad it never
and
drops
a
the fucking
requirement
mount.
to have a mic, basically. I'll tell you what made the fight special. So Mecha would call in these little zappy robots into the fight, and they have a 99% damage reduction, so traditional damage ain't gonna work. And what Mecha would do is shrink you, and you had to enter the robots as if you were entering a vehicle, and call out a sort of diffuse sequence shown above other players' robots. 3 calls in a row on a timer, and on Mythic there was 3 of these to do at once. You'd be surprised how many issues something like this could cause. The final boss was Jaina Proudmoore, played through a Horde point of view. What a fight it was. For the world first guilds, everything up to this point had taken 2 days, but Jaina, it took just after the reset and 346 wipes for Method to take their second world first this expansion.
I remember I was on break watching this, and this was so fucking funny. This was so fucking funny watching these people like wipe on it over and over and over. And I remember whenever I think it was Limit or like another guild killed the stockade or the blockade or whatever, storm and blockade, whenever Method was still wiping on Mechatork, and just watching how fucking furious they were, it was just insane. Like, it was the funniest the blockade, stockade, whatever the fuck it was, dude, who cares? And it's like seeing them fight with each other and just get mad constantly. It was great, man. It was fucking amazing. I feel like that's almost one of the best parts about the Mythic Plus race, is like seeing the guilds get mad at each other and like seeing like the little guild drama that comes out of it. I wish there was actually more guild drama. I would have preferred that.
Crucible of Storms was soon to follow, expected to be a little bit of a tie-over to the next raid tier. This short 2-boss raid ended up being the hardest fought battle so far in the expansion, with the guild Pieces from Europe taking the world first kill on both bosses, Unat dropping on pull number 700 and on day 9. It was speculated at the time, due to being a short raid and Blizzard seeing the popularity of the world first race, that the difficulty was turned up to 10 to make the most out of the event.
This raid was a
when
big
in
cock.
reality it caused more burnout than anything else for the top end guilds, since raids in BFA so far had just been hard, and regrinding Azerite power constantly, spending all day in islands, was really starting to wear thin for them.
I thought Crucible was fucking awesome. I loved Crucible. I thought Crucible was really, really cool. It was like 2 really hard bosses. It's the segue into the Inzoth, and he comes in, and the bosses are fucking challenging. There's like these cool weapons that you can use, and you've also got this gear that has like all these cool little stats on it, and it's like the same level of difficulty as like Mythic Jaina, or actually I guess Unat was even harder than that. Like, there were so many fucking badass things about Crucible. I don't know. I even liked it in terms of like the lore. I think the lore shift of Crucible was what made me like it the most. Is it was like that was the point where people realized like it's not the battle for Azeroth between the Alliance and the Horde. It's the battle for Azeroth between the Alliance and the Horde versus N'Zoth. Like, that was so fucking badass. Like, Crucible was amazing, and I really liked it in pretty much all ways. And it's disappointing that like people didn't really give it as much credit, and now it's just kind of like an invalid raid. Like, nobody even did it. I feel like whenever like now nobody cares about it at all. We knew that from the beginning. Yeah, you knew that was probably going to happen, right? But it's like, then it happens, and it's like, it's there. It's one thing between like, knowing it's going to happen. Like, it's like you knew the Lich King was going to fucking be the last boss in Wrath. But whenever he really fucking showed up in the Throne of Thunder, or not Throne of Thunder, excuse me, fucking Trial of the Crusader, it was on. He was right there. Yeah, Loot's not worth it. I thought it was really cool.
Follow-up raid was Azshara's Eternal Palace, taking place on the legendary Nazjatar, and the closest world first race we have seen yet. Method and Limit both going head to head, pull to pull, merely single-digit percentages away from a kill.
This was
but Method
I think this was the best
claimed
race.
Victory on day 12 after 359 wipes.
This is, in my opinion,
it was also
the best
the first raid to ever feature an underwater boss, which you
this
probably half forgot about because
boss.
it was forgettable.
Boss.
Blackwater Behemoth. People didn't exactly expect much running up to it, but it ended up being the easiest encounter in the entire raid, even on Mythic. So much for that idea, I guess. The final tier of BFA was the equally legendary.
It was only easy because it was a second boss. Like, it's supposed to be easy. Like, here's the thing, is like, it was a cool underwater boss because it was easy. If it was a hard boss, people would have fucking hated it. Like, they had to make it an easy boss. Like, that's 100% what it is, yeah. And also, like, it was only easy because people stacked immunities. Like, that's how you did Blackwater Behemoth, is you just stacked immunities. That's what at least, like, my group did. I think a lot of guilds did that. They stacked immunities and, like, the Shaman Ankh totems and, like, all kinds of other shit.
Nyalofa, the Waking City, and another battle against an old god to follow, N'Zoth. And, well, it wasn't exactly too well looked upon for reasons apart from just the mechanics on the bosses. Football, anyone? N'Zoth lived for 10 days and 270 white, with Limit finally dethroning Method, but we'll talk more about that soon. And we still have plenty of points to cover. I've decided to split this one into 2 sections where we have the more positive sides and well-remembered aspects of Battle for Azeroth, and then we have the rest of it, shall we say. Every expansion has good and every expansion has bad, but BFA tipped that scale quite a bit in one direction, at least for me personally.
I liked Visions. I think Visions were great, and I had to do a lot of them for my Mail Muncher, and I still enjoyed them. I like it more like Complexity beat Method. Are you guys stupid? Are you guys stupid? Complexity beat Method? Like, are you... give me a fucking break, dude. Yeah, I don't know about that, man. You complained about them all the time. I complain about everything in the game, though. Like, the amount of complaining that I do about content does not really correlate to if I like the content or not. Because there's a million things in the game that I complain about and I fucking hate, but I still like them. Yeah, that's all there is. So, yeah, I complain about everything. No, it's like Method earned their second place, okay? And Limit earned their first place. I did think that Visions were great content. I liked Visions a lot. The only problem that happened was that there was no scaling challenge after the 5 mask. You would just do your 5 mask vision and that was it. And there was no incentive to do it faster. There was no scaling challenge in any other way. You just do your 5 mask vision and, you know, like, what happens after that? And that's what I would think. Yeah, the only people that beat Method was Josh. That's true.
I'm sure if you watch any of the retail style of content on YouTube, then you've seen a lot more of the negative side. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to echo that because that is also how I feel about it. So join me next time as we look over some of the more points to criticize in BFA and hopefully that have been learned from moving into Shadowlands from Blizzard. As always, I hope you like this video and I will see you in the next one very soon.
Okay, let me scroll all the way down and read some of this stuff. The problem is their trash systems overshadow the good in the game. That was a weak video. I mean, like, he probably didn't play BFA a whole lot, but I'll go ahead and I'll link the video and we'll look at the comments. Major disappointment in expansion N'Zoth. Yeah, I think N'Zoth was a big disappointment. There were plenty of things that were just generally disappointments in the game. And I don't know if that's really ever going to change. I talk about something Barry played. Well, I think that it's important to get people's perspectives on games that are like more casual as well. And it doesn't necessarily mean that their perspective is worth as much as a hardcore player, but it does matter to hear what other people's perspective is and just to hear what they say. It's the same as like, you want to know what somebody who's a casual player thinks, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that their opinion overrides somebody who's played the game more and is more informed. Does that make sense? Can I get more elitist? Well, yeah, absolutely. Casual players don't understand the game as well, and Blizzard shouldn't make the game based around what they want because they don't understand what they want because they're casual players. Like, you should never listen to a casual player and just give them what they want because they don't understand the game. So yeah, that's 100% it. Sound like a game from Blizzard? Yeah. Like, the thing is that it's not about being casual or not. It's about having understanding of the game. They just simply don't have understanding of the game. Casuals outnumber pros. It's not about casuals outnumbering pros. Giving people what they want fundamentally is not always the right decision. It's like if you were to give people, like if you were to have a vote and say, okay, you could probably vote and get most of the player base to vote to give everybody Invincible. Or like give everybody one mount or another mount, or like make the the Scarab Board mount obtainable again. I think that you could probably get a majority with those kinds of things. And just because you can get a majority vote for certain decisions in the game doesn't necessarily mean that those decisions would be healthy for the game. It's the same with Mythic plus rating. I think maybe you could get a majority vote for that too, but I don't think that it would be good for the game. Some things should not be a public vote, and it should not be decided by the amount of people that want it. Does that make sense? Casual quits the game, you'll lose the game, dude. You're missing my point. My point is that casuals don't know what they want. They say they know what they want, and then they get it, and then they don't like it. That's the point that I'm making here. Yeah, it's completely different. And casuals ruin the game. Yeah, it's like the people that like they want to have like LFR, and then they finally have LFR, and then they quit the game 1 week after they complete LFR because they've already beat the game. So like, is this really doing anybody any favors by adding this? I don't really think so.